My name is Jenna, but you guys can call me Jen. Welcome back to my channel. Welcome. You already know what kind of video this is. You've seen the title, Tomb, the Locked Tomb read, or reread in multiple senses. I am going to be rereading Gideon the Ninth, Harrow the Ninth, and finally diving into Nona the Ninth in this vlog. I'm so excited. I'm hoping to do back to back of epicness, awesomeness. Why am I rereading these two books before Nona, you may ask? Because both Gideon and Harrow left me quite confused, yet deeply in love. Don't get me wrong, these books are 4.5, 5-star books for me, but they left me deeply confused upon my first read of them. So I tell myself, why not reread them now that I know what goes on in each of them, and I might be able to pick up on some more clues. I am so excited to read, to dive back into this world. I also am very excited because, as you guys know, if you've been around on my channel for a little while, I have really terrible memory, and especially book retention memory. So rereading books is one of my favorite things to do, because when I reread books, it's like I'm reading the book for the first time in a lot of instances. When I reread Priory earlier last month, it was like I was reading the book for the first time, but familiar book in a familiar world. The rereads always benefit me, no matter what I do. But yes, get ready for the Locked Tomb reread, or reading vlog, I guess, of the 3 that are out. I will be probably doing this again when Electo comes out, whatever that's going to be, the 4th one and the last one of this series. But I'm so excited to reread Gideon, to reread Harrow, and then dive into Nona. Up first, Gideon the Ninth. Alright, I am now 165 pages into my reread, and this is flinging delightful on the second time around. I am living my very best life, man. Rereads are just something else, especially when they're a book that you absolutely love. And I don't know what it is, because as I said, I was so confused the first time I was reading through Gideon. I had no idea what was going on. The second time around, life is so much more clear. I'm annotating this thoroughly. Every time I come across something, I'm just like, how was I so blind the first time? The little seeds that Tamsin is planting for certain cavaliers and necromancers that Gideon and Harrow come across, I don't know how I was so blind to it the first time. It is literally like slapping you across the face with it. I love how delicious this book feels. After having read Harrow, because I read Harrow this year, I read Gideon originally last year. After having read Harrow this year, Harrow's prose is so different from Gideon. Understandably, I can see why so many people struggle with Harrow, because it is hard being in Harrow's head. Her narration style is so different from Gideon's. And coming back to Gideon, I remember even in the moment in Harrow, in the moment when Gideon comes back on page, that switch in narration is so subtle yet so astronomical. I remember getting to that point and almost like weeping with relief, because I was just like, this is, my girl's back. I'm so happy that she's back narrating this story. Oh my god. And being back now exclusively in Gideon's head is just perfect. My sweet, soft, stupid himbo woman who just wants to hit things with her sword and protect her necromancer. There are a couple things that I have totally forgotten about as well, which is really fun, and I'm happy about this because it's gonna be like reading it for the first time again. As I said at the beginning of this video, when I was rereading Priory, same kind of a thing. Memory's bad, so rereading stuff is the best, because oftentimes it's like, it feels very familiar and comforting because you're coming back to a world that you know, and you know the big plot points and stuff, and you know like what happens, but it's all the little details wherein you're like, I am bamboozled, I forgot about this. First spoiler warning for you guys for Gideon the Ninth as a whole, this book specifically. How the hell did I miss that Dulcinea's cavalier is 100% just an animated body the first time I read this through? I swear to god. Also, the fact that like the whole world and the whole planet that they're on, First House, is so beautiful from afar and like glistening and green and lush and like almost held in this state of waiting is so interesting and such a cool image for a necromantic magic situation. And then the fact that the closer you get, the more you see how decayed it is. Oh, it's so cool. Anyways, so this little man, she ends up having a interruption interaction with someone who never fully speaks to her. It's one of these things that he's described as the man who'd put the sword to her neck was uncomfortably buff. He had upsetting biceps. He didn't look healthy. He looked like a collection of lemons in a sack. He was a dour, bulky person whose skin had something of the girl's strange, translucent tinge. He was waxen looking in the sunlight, probably with sweat, and wore the girl half draped over his shoulder as though she were a baby or a rug. And a little bit later, in that same paragraph, he's described as staring at Gideon emptily because there's nothing behind his eyes. How the balls did I miss that the first time? And then the beginning of chapter 8, I love the descriptions and the words that Tamsin chooses because like they can be seen as so like frivolous and all encompassing and just this incredible use of language just to like show off in a way. But the descriptions that she uses are so specific. They are so specific no matter how wild they sound, because this description of the House of the First is so cool. It's like, as I said, looks like this beautiful body of this beautiful planet, but the closer you get, the more like absolutely decrepit it looks, right? So this one sentence is, everything in that room was beautiful and all had gone to seed. It wasn't like back in the Ninth where unbeautiful things were now old and ruined to boot. The Ninth must have always been a corpse, and corpses putrefied. The House of the First had been abandoned and breathlessly waited to be used by someone other than time. This whole paragraph, his words like leprous, and it's beautiful, and it's like the pillars that reached up to support the shining glass were carpeted thickly with moss, still alive, still radiant. Use of obscured and skulking, like it gives this house an alive feel, which is very accurate to what the story is from what I remember. The fact that Tamsin chooses multiple times to describe death as, or dead people as waxen is very telling, because as soon as she uses that word, you know whatever she's describing is dead, because she uses it at the beginning with Harrow's parents, and you know that they're just corpses. So it's one of these things that her language is so incredible. Now I'm just rambling about this, just this like linguistic masterpiece, this book. Like it's absolutely bad shit and it is full of memes, but it is so delicious too. I'm living for it. I've gotten to a point now where I don't really remember what happens between right now and the start of all of like the murders, because this is a very and then there were none vibes where it's all these people locked in this house on this planet with no means of escape. They start dying one by one. I don't remember what happens between where I am right now with Harrow discovering this new trial with Gideon's help, and I don't know how they get from there to the murders to like figuring everything out. And I'm excited to reread the end again, because the first time I was reading the end, I had no idea what was happening. I was so confused. So I'm excited to read it for a second time to like parse it out. That is update of page 165. I'm living for this. I'm living for this reread. And if it wasn't already after 2 in the morning, I would be continuing to read this. I am like fully awake right now, which is not good because I have to work tomorrow. But like, Tamsin Muir's a fucking genius. Anyways, I'll update you if I have anything else to say before the end, but if not, it'll be by the end. But thank God I decided to do this. Hello friends, it is now a couple days since I last talked to you, and I just finished my reread of Gideon the Ninth. I actually understood this book top to bottom this time. These books are made for rereading. Oh my god. I actually could follow the ending sequence. I wasn't confused like the first time I was. I was so confused the first time I read this, but like in a good way. That ending just punches you in the gut, doesn't it? My sweet Gideon. I love her narration so much. Man, I annotated this so much, but oh my god. I love this book so much. The like puzzle solving and then there were none vibes are so much fun. I truly love this book so much. This is easy 5 stars. There's nothing, this book is so good. It's perfection. I love it so much. There's that one quote near the end that literally murders me, and it's, "You are my only friend. I am undone without you." This book is out to murder me every time. Oh god, the yearning. And it's so subtle too. Like the first time around I didn't really catch it until like the scene in the pool, which is where there are like very, very clear breaking boundaries, kind of like they're breaking down the walls that they put up around themselves against each other. Like it's very clearly them almost coming to a truce of what they've been through for all these years together, and like what Harrow has specifically put Gideon through. Gideon just wants to protect everybody because Gideon is my sweet, soft himbo protection baby. And Harrow's losing her mind after Gideon says that she's so sorry for what Harrow's gone through, and Harrow's like, you're sorry? You're telling me that you're sorry for me after I've literally made your life hell? Like, what do you mean? And that's when she says that you are my only friend, I am undone without you. And then Gideon just like pulls her into this hug, and it's this moment of like Harrow totally giving up, because there's a moment where it says the reverend daughter fell calm and limp, as was natural for one being ritually drowned. She believes that Gideon is killing her right now, or trying to. But then when she realized it was just Gideon hugging her, that's when she fights back, because she can't process affection very well, or at all. Sweet baby Harrow. Gosh, and then right at the end of this section, Gideon comes up and like peels Harrow up off of her, because they're just like this mess of soaking wet messes, and she gives her a little forehead kiss right here. And I think that is the sweetest, most intimate thing anyone could ever do, especially to your like mortal enemy, man. Like, book is so good. The second time around, so much better than the first, because I actually understood it all and I could follow it all, because I knew how batshit this writing was. God, I'm so excited to dive into Harrow now, because I'm excited to understand Harrow a little bit more, because I know now going in that Harrow the Ninth, the book, is narrated out of order, and it mimics Harrow going through a psychotic break, right? Like, Harrow is not okay. Harrow is not okay in Harrow the Ninth, and it takes until about 70% of the way through for Harrow's own hallucinations to like tell her that she's hallucinating and that she's forgotten something extremely important. Tomorrow I'm diving into Harrow, and we're gonna try zoom through that so we can get to Nona real quick, because I need to know what happens after Harrow. Besides Gideon, who is my favorite of all time, I think my second favorite character is, I keep on saying Protesilaus, but that's because his name is Palamedes. Palamedes is my second favorite. He's very good. And then probably Harrow after that. Harrow is an interesting character, and I'll talk about that more when we get to Harrow the Ninth, when I actually start reading it, because Harrow is insufferable and her brain is so hard to be in. Anyways, I'm gonna stop rambling. We're done book one. On to the next. Hello, lovely friends. It is now the next day, and I have started Harrow the Ninth. I am truly enjoying this an immense amount. It's very good. I'm on page 176, chapter 17. First time I read Harrow the Ninth, I was so fucking confused the entire time. In a great way. We love it, but God, this is just cementing the thing that these books are meant to be reread, because you understand them so much more the second time around, because you get to the end of it and you're like, oh, that's what's going on. And then you read back through it and you're like, that makes so much more sense now that I know what's happening, because everything is laid out so clearly. I was just dumb the first time around because I was lacking the relevant information to make this clear. Seeing how, just like with the dead guy in Gideon the Ninth, seeing the blatant like narrative inputs and the dialogue inputs as well, that is basically calling out how wrong this narrative is and how unreliable it is over and over and over again. Literally right from the beginning, right from the start. Literally the dramatis personae at the beginning. You have all of these beautifully typeset things, and then the one name that is capitalized all the way through is Ortis the First. So it's like, it's basically telling you that this one is wrong, right? Like, it's not right. And then of course we have Harrow's like absolutely crazily blacked out Cavalier name, because the Cavalier's name has been removed from her brain by herself. And it's just it's this wild thing, like the prologue. It gives you exactly what's going to happen in this book, down to the letter. There's this moment where, like, I was reading back through and I was like, this is exactly how it ends. And I know how it ends. It ends a little bit later than the prologue gives you, but it's still like, I'm like, oh, this is exactly it. And there's a moment in it where it's Ianthe, I've never actually said Ianthe's name out loud. That's fun. Ianthe looks at Harrow and goes, I know what you've done and I know how to reverse it. If only you'd ask me to. Just ask. It's that easy. It's just one of those things that's just like, I'm losing my shit. And then right at the end of page 18 in this, which is literally like the 6th page of the prologue, because pages. It's wild. It's all you could do was lie gasping in a pool of your own fluids, too powerful to die quickly or too weak to save yourself. You were only half a lictor, and half a lictor was worse than not a lictor at all. And a little while, like just down a little bit, you prepared to die with the locked tomb on your lips, but your idiot dying mouth rounded out 3 totally different syllables, and they were 3 syllables you did not even understand. The first time I read through that, I had no idea that meant Gideon. 3 syllables you did not understand. This whole book is Harrow's inability to comprehend the name Gideon, because she's removed it from her brain. Every time there's a moment in here where, again, capitalization of the name Ortis Naganad right at the beginning, which I found funny, and then right after that there is a blip in time where there's a repeated word for word paragraph. Harrow goes, I feel as though we've had this conversation before. And then there's the repetition throughout this book. Every once in a while different people say it to Harrow, saying, this isn't how it happens, or is this how it happens? Like, it's this weird repetition of this. And I was like, man, I was totally not aware of things at the time. And then when there's one moment in here as well where she's talking specifically to God. He says the name Gideon, but she hears it as Ortis. And it's described so funny to me. She's in the middle of a psychotic break, and like everyone's aware of it because she's just become a lictor, and they're like, you've just gone through trauma, like this is normal, but you're like not recovering as fast as you should be, so like we just have to protect you a little bit. God, or the Emperor, or John, if you will, takes her and like looks her dead in the face and says, Ortis Naganad did not die for nothing, he said. But the narration says, as he spoke, his mouth looked strange. A hot whistle of pain ran down your temporal bone. Your body was numb to grief. Perhaps you had felt it once, but you did not feel it anymore. So it's this moment of, he says Gideon the Ninth, or Gideon Nav, or whatever. He says it, but it's not on the page. But she perceives him saying it as Ortis Naganad, which is why his mouth looks strange. And it's this moment of like, anytime somebody else says Gideon, she hears Ortis Naganad, but it's this moment wherein her brain and whatever she's done to herself messes up her constitution or something, and she either has a mental blip, a lapse, faints, throws up, something happens to her that is this moment of like her brain stuttering and replacing the word for her. It does it so hard that even the person who is named Gideon in this that isn't Gideon the Ninth, his name is changed to Ortis as well, which is really funny. And the first time around I was so confused reading this because I just had no idea what was going on, who any of these people were. I was like, who the hell is Ortis Naganad? What's happening? And I had like the lingering feeling of like, oh, this is probably just Harrow hallucinating or something, but I didn't get all the strings attached and I didn't catch all these little moments. And then there's this one moment where Harrow then, like right after that moment that I just described before, where Harrow's like, Ortis Naganad died thinking it was the only gift he was capable of giving, you said, and I have wasted it like air. The king, God, the Emperor, John, looks at her and goes, Ortis? Again, but the bile was sputtering up into your throat, your mouth, before the body passed her hand over your eyebrows, over the bridge of your nose, and you slipped from his imperial grip. You almost fell senseless to the floor. Ortis Naganad, said the Emperor again, almost wondering. But then you knew nothing more except that you hadn't thrown up on God, which had to count as consolation. So like, she says Ortis out loud, and he's like this one moment of like, I guess he knows who he is because he's the Emperor, he's the god over everybody, so like he knows who Ortis Naganad is, because Ortis Naganad is a person from the first book, is the old cavalier that would have been in Gideon's place if he hadn't absconded off the planet with his mother in an attempt to save his life. Like, it's this moment when I read Harrow earlier this year for the first time, I could not remember who Ortis Naganed was. I thought Ortis Naganed was a complete figment of Harrow's imagination, but here I am, and I'm just like, no, Ortis Naganed was very real, and I totally forgot about that. Every time that someone names Ortis in the you parts, because there's a really fun narration style going on because Tamsinmir's written it in the second person narration with the you, and then there are other sections where it's narrated in third person. So you have Harrow back in the House of the Ninth going through these moments of what she perceives to be memory but aren't memory, they're false memories. And in each of these false memories, there's little things that are not correct. I didn't really notice them the first time, which is very interesting to me. Like, a lot of it is very, 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 very correct. But for example, in chapter 3, at the very end of it, there's a sentence that says, there had been another girl who grew up alongside Harrow, but she had died before Harrow was born. Like, little things like that I'm like, no, that's wrong, obviously. So it's these little things that are hints that are like, look, like yelling at the reader essentially, like, look, this is all wrong, Harrow's obviously wrong. And on page 62 of my edition, there's another one where she's talking to Ianthe Tridentarius, and Harrow says, I swear by my mother, by the salt water, by that which lies dead and unbreathing in the tomb, by the ripped and remade soul of Ortis Naganed. Ianthe goes, who? Oh yes, the Cavalier. But in the way of like, Ianthe would have known Ortis better if he had actually been Harrow's Cavalier, right? Because they had like the whole confrontation at the end in Canaan House of Gideon, the 9th of the book. And oh god, this book is a fucking masterpiece. And I didn't notice it the first time around how well done this is pulled together. I am shooketh to my core. This book is fantastic. This whole series is fantastic. And I'm so excited to get to Nona. Man, okay. Every time I talk about these books, I ramble for so long. So I'm very sorry about that. But I am going to call it here for the night because I'm tired and I have to work in the morning. But we're on our way with Harrow. Hello friends, it's been a couple days since I last chatted with you, but I wanted to pop in because I literally just finished Harrow. I forgot how much that this book specifically makes me question everything. I don't understand the ending. Even the second time I read this, there was a lot of things I was just like, I don't understand this. So I'm really hoping things are cleared up in Nona, because god damn, was this confusing, but so good. Oh my god. And the entire time I was sitting there catching on these things that I don't know how I didn't catch it the first time through. Like, there's a joke that one of the other lictors makes that gets through Harrow's brain thing that she's done to like forget Gideon's name, and it's talking about Gideon the First, who's referred to as Ortis the First throughout most of this, and it's one of the other lictors, Augustine, I think he says something like he makes a joke being like, oh, like more like Giddy Nun, and Harrow's like, I didn't understand that joke, and I'm like, it hit me like a brick. Giddy Nun, Gideon. Oh, I missed that the first time around. I'm losing my mind. Like, it's so clear from word go that whatever Harrow is seeing is very, very wrong, which is so interesting. And then it's all framed as Harrow trying to remember all this stuff and being stuck in these memories and trying to like decode it's her brain essentially trying to work out what's wrong with her. That's in third person. And every single one of those, there's something very, very, very wrong with every single one of these things that her brain has changed about the past. Every once in a while, you'll have one of the characters in that be like, you're wrong. But it's always the same cast of characters, which now makes sense as to why, because I was reading it and I was like, oh, it's always Abigail, it's always Magnus, it's always Ortis, and it's always a couple of the other more like Lieutenant Dias and stuff. There's a couple more that show up every time in Harrow's like reimagined memories, and everybody else dies, which is not what happens, obviously. So it's so interesting that they're the same, they're the people that just keep coming up for Harrow, and they're the ones in that bubble attached in the river in the end that help her get her mind back. Like, the very, very end, there's a little bit with Augustine and Mercy Morn that I have no idea. Even the second time reading it through, I have no idea what they're talking about. I'm really hoping that Nona clears it up, because it's truly like, I have zero idea what they're saying. I even wrote in the book in my annotations, like, I still don't know what's going on in this bit. It's right before Mercy Morn tries to kill the Emperor, right? And they're talking about something. I understand what they did with Gideon, the Ninth, our Gideon, the love of my life griddle. I understand what they did concerning her. but I don't understand. There's a little bit of text before that. I don't know what it means, but I guess that's fine. I also don't know who the sleeper is still. I think the sleeper is Wake, Commander Wake. Could be wrong though. I think it's Wake. I think that's how they like lined it up because of like the note that Harrow receives that says awake when she's in the bubble in the river, and then hearing Captain Wake's or Commander Wake's full name, which is really funny and is a pun, which I love. It's the kind of book that makes you need the next book desperately, even on reread. So I'm really glad that I brought it with me because I do really want to start it, even though it is like 12:30 in the morning right now. I'm also not home. I'm currently looking after Bella. So, and she's all white, but she's there. You sweet pea? Hey, yeah. So I'm glad that I brought Nona with me because I will be reading it. These books are so good. There's been so many times where I've just been sitting there and just being like, wow, Tamsin Muir is a freaking genius. I'm gonna go get Nona and start that. Hello, friends. I totally forgot to update you with Nona. As I've been reading it, I'm just about halfway through. Nona is so different from the other two, and yet still very similar because of course it's Tamsin Muir, so you know it's gonna be a little kooky and weird, right? But like the writing is so pared back. It is so palatable. It is definitely the most understandable book, but it's set up after the events of Harrow. So just the general basis of Nona is confusing because we have a girl we've never met before who doesn't know who she is, being essentially raised by two people who we thought were dead, and Pyrrha, who was someone we met at the end of Harrow. They're now in this city. They're in a completely different space than the past two books have been. Like, they're not even in any of the 9 houses. They're on a random planet in a city that is just about to be taken over by necromancers, and in this city, necromancers are feared above all else, and people are being killed en masse just for the assumption that they're necromancers. And there's this big orb around the city that like causes those who are necromancers to be, I don't know, to fall under this like sickness. I'm not sure. But so we start right away with Nona, who is the sweetest being of all time, who doesn't know who she is because she woke up about 6 months ago in this body, and Camilla and Palamedes, who are living in the same body, they're living in Cam's body, which is how Palamedes, because Palamedes is a necromancer, or was, is, then was, then is, because he died at one point. They're living in the same body and they like swap out whenever they're indoors. Palamedes comes out for a little bit to like suss out what's going on because then he's not affected by the blue orb hanging around the city, right, as a necromancer. But Cam and Pal and then Pyrrha are like taking care of Nona, and they've given her the name Nona because she used to say no 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 all the time. That's all she said, as she was like, you know, acclimating to her body and like being brought forth into the soul that she is now. She's just the sweetest being. They don't know who she is. They're trying to figure out who she is. It's either Gideon or Harrow. They're trying to figure out who she is. The hints that we're getting about Nona's personality don't fit either Harrow or Nona, which is making me so scared. Because like, what happened to my girls? What happened to them? I need to know. And then throughout this like Nona, just it's this very soft like everyday life, just this family trying to take care of each other, this family unit with Pal and Cam and Pyrrha and Nona. And then it's also Nona's little found family that she's made out of these students that she goes and like is a teacher's aide for. They're like her best friends because she's, I don't know, she's like 19 in body but not in mind, right? Because she's only really been alive for like 6 months, so she's still trying to be normal and trying to parse things out, and she has a lot of struggles, a lot of stuff, but she's really intuitive with emotions and people's bodies, which is really cool, but in a different way than necromancy. I'm gonna start getting into a little bit more spoilery stuff, so I'm gonna be a little bit more aware with Nona because Nona is newer. I'm not gonna spoil as much as I did with Gideon and Harrow in this video, but so Nona in this can't absorb facts, right? This is one of her things that she says at the beginning, that it feels as though she's learned these things before, and so her brain forgets them immediately, which is a really interesting little note. There's moments where Cam and Pal and Pyrrha are trying to figure out who she is, right? So they put her through the ringer because she dreams of a girl with a skull face every night, and she cannot suss out whether she's the girl or she's talking to the girl. It's this very mixed thing. It's almost like they're entwined, which makes me think of Gideon and Harrow. In Harrow, the Ninth and how their souls were kind of entwined in a weird way. So I'm thinking it's like a reflection of that. During the day, Nona's body herself also feels almost corpse-like. They are all collectively alive enough in this world to pass as like alive humans, because there's like scanners and stuff that detect if you're a corpse or not. It's very, very intriguing because we also have Pyrrha, who is like 10,000 years old and is living in the body of her necromancer Gideon the First. So we have Pyrrha, who is this epic warrior. And we also have Cam and Pal, as I said, who are sort of pseudo-lictor, even though they died before they became a lictor together, right? So this is so interesting, and they're trying to figure out who Nona is. And I'm trying to figure out who Nona is. They keep going through this stuff where they try to get her to do stuff with bones, so Calamity Sextus will come out and like try to get her to do necromancy with bones, and she can't. So I'm thinking if she's Harrow, something is emotionally, or like something is gone for her, like necromancy, if she's Harrow. And then I was like, okay, well that makes more sense that if like she's super kind and super bubbly and just wants to protect people, and she's like, which isn't quite the same personality as Gideon, because Gideon was jaded as shit. All this kind of stuff, but she's gotta be Gideon. But then, and it makes sense because Gideon was with Pyrrha at the end of the last book, so like they would have pulled Pyrrha and Gideon through at the same time, but the river messes everything up, right? I'm if you've read Nona, you know what this ramble is talking about. But like there's also Cam teaches Nona, or tries to teach Nona swordplay, and Nona doesn't like the sword. So I'm just here like, that's not Gideon, because Gideon was like married to her sword. Damson, what are you doing to me? But yeah, this whole first half, because I'm about halfway through, as I said, is so slow and mysterious. It's giving us also interspersed with all of Nona's life, everyday life, very soft, very chill, but it's also like underlined with this desperate need to live, and like you can tell there's like secret societies trying to figure out where all the 9 houses are after the events of Harrow, because like something crazy happened with John, our good old man John, the Emperor Undying. Something happened at the end of Harrow that I don't quite know what happened. So like they're trying to find the rest of the houses, or like the rest of the members of houses, I think. There was a moment where they get kind of taken to this secret lair, the three bodies, I guess I should say, the 4 people. They get taken to this lair, and they meet someone who goes by the name Crown, or who Nona calls Crown, and it just went right over my head who Crown was until Cam literally says Corona Beth, and I lost my mind. I was like, of course it's friggin' Corona Beth. She's back. And now I'm just thinking that like all these different names that are like mentioned everywhere, they've got to be other people that we know. This book is so interesting because it's not nearly as gripping or as action-packed as Gideon or Harrow was for me. And it's not my favorite so far, but I'm so intrigued as to what story Tamsin is giving us. Throughout Nona's story, as I keep saying, we're also interspersed with these like Bible-esque passages where we're getting the creation of the 9 houses and the Emperor Undying explained to us by John to Harrow, and it's very specifically Harrow because she's named. We're getting this like biblical era, or this biblically set up, I say biblically because it's literally John 28, where he explains to Harrow his history and how he came to be. And it's like, it's giving us backstory to the 9 houses and this kind of stuff. I am so rambling on this book, and I'm so sorry about it, but I just trying to decode it all, and I can't read anymore because it's like 1:30 in the morning already, and I need to be up early, but I just... Oh, Tamsin Muir is a freaking genius, and I just want to know what puzzle she's laying out, and I don't know how I'm gonna have to wait for at least another year or more for Electo when that comes out, the final book. Oh my god. I'm gonna excuse the person I'm gonna be when that comes out, but I'm gonna catch up with you when this is all over, and we'll see my final reactions, and I'll try to keep them as spoiler-free as possible because I know I've been spoiling a lot in this vlog, and I do apologize for that, but like, as I said, it's hard to talk about a series and my reactions to it without spoiling what's going on. Oh my god, one last thing. If you've read Nona, you've seen that first broadcast where Ianthe's on screen and we see the corpse. I almost started crying. Cause like, I knew immediately it was a dead body, but then it's a dead body of my beloved, and so that makes me even more confused because then that's the girl that Nona's seeing in her dreams. I don't know what's happening. But I'm still really enjoying it. Anyways, I'll catch up with you later. I friends. I just finished Nona the Ninth. What? What? I don't understand the ending. I sort of do, but oh god, this is gonna be another reread, isn't it? I should know by now from this video, but if I have learned anything, is that Tamsin Muir's books need to be reread to be understood. So, out of all of them, Nona was definitely the most easily followable until the end. That's when shit got a little loopy. I'm not gonna spoil anything for you guys at all. I'm gonna have to talk to one of my friends and get what she thinks because she read this as well. But yeah, I'm not gonna spoil anything else of Nona for you guys. Just know that you do get the love of my life, Gideon, back on page. And she just breaks my entire heart. You also get such an intriguing creation story almost with the John Bible bits that are interspersed in here. This is probably the best book for character stuff, whereas a lot of the other two, well, I guess Harrow is really interesting on character because you get a good look at Harrow's character, and then Gideon the Ninth, you get a good look at Gideon's character. But in this, you get a good look at not only Nona, but Pyrrha and Calamities and Camilla and a few others. It's such a lovely little found family trope, I think is what this one is. Yeah, this is gonna need a reread. It was a lot slower than the other ones for sure, especially at the beginning, but I trust Tamsin, as I said, and it's a good thing that I trusted her because she had a point to all of that. It probably could have been cut out a little bit and we could have gotten to the action a little bit quicker, but you needed all these moments of drawn out Nona dreaming to get all of the John moments, because whenever she dreams, that's when you get the John moments. They line up that way. This was so interesting. This was so good. If any of you have read this, what the fuck is up with Noodle? There's a line at the end that says the ship is full of necromancers and a dog. Why is the dog so important? Anyways, I don't know. That's the one question I'll leave you with. All right, let me quickly put this back in its dust jacket here. Wow, okay. This was definitely a good, satisfying read because a lot of the questions were answered. The main one, who is Nona, was answered. Also, we kind of figure out who Nona's body is. We obviously get a lot of the lore dumps about the creation story in the world and what's happening in the world and what happened before to lead up to the 9 houses, which is really good. I am so excited for Alecto now. Although I will say, spoilers for just the ending of Nona, basically. If Alecto the Ninth, the book, is narrated like Alecto's parts in this book, I will riot because that is so uncomfortable to read. I hate it. It's Shakespearean. I don't like it. So I really hope it's not narrated like that. I really hope it's not. Knowing Tamsin though, it will be because she likes to play with narration, because I that's the one thing I've noticed across all 3 of these books is their narration is very similar, very Tamsin, but changes for each point of view it's in the subtlest of ways. With Gideon, we have her personality leaking through on the page, right? It's just the best you could ever be in, the best brain space. In Harrow, you're living in Harrow's head, which is a little bit more clipped. There's long words and there's lots of lectoral knowledge, and there's also the gently unhinged bit and the fact that she's having some sort of mental breakdown. And then in Nona, it is so clear. It's still Tamsin's luxuriously linguistic narration, but it's so clear as to well, it's not so clear, but it's a lot more clear than Gideon or Harrow previously as to what's happening. So I like that. And it's seen through Nona's eyes, and because Nona doesn't really know a whole lot, I think that was such an intriguing choice for a narrator, because so much of what happens with the other characters who know very well what's happening and what has happened and all the events at the end of Harrow and the flare of Dominicus and whatever, seeing all of them have these conversations that we kind of know the context to where Nona doesn't know the context is so fun. This is such a good choice of narrator because it's not a conventional choice of narrator. This reminds me of The Bone Orchard by Sarah A. Mueller, because that's another one where I was why choose these ladies as the points of view for this very politically charged narrative that's happening? But it works. It really, really works. I think if I had to change narrators for Nona, it would be Calamities and Camilla. it would be those two that would narrate this, because I think it would be interesting to see their thought processes and also what's going on with them, because of course Camilla and Palamedes are sharing a body. I'm gonna need to sleep on this forever, but this whole series is my favorite ever. I'm gonna get up and get the whole series. I love this series so much. This series is built for me. It is built to reread. It is just phenomenal. Yes to this series. Lock Tomb series, 10 out of 10. I don't know if I've talked about this throughout this vlog, but as I wrap this up, I'll do it kind of quickly. So the ratings for each of the books, at least for Gideon and Harrow, have changed since I first read them. Because when I first read Gideon the Ninth, I rated this 4.5 stars, and it is now a 5-star for me. New favorite, absolutely, of all time, beloved. Then we have Harrow, which earlier this year was a 4-star and is now a 4.5 star because I realized the brilliance of it. And then we have Nona, of course, which I don't know what this is gonna be rated concretely, but it's definitely between a 4 and a 5. So, God, I love this series so much. But yes, my friends, thank you so much for hanging out with me on this excruciatingly long vlog. I know it's very long. I hope you enjoyed. Leave me a comment down below just if you have read these books, or if you're looking forward to reading them now, or if you actually made it this far. Leave me a little skull emoji for my girl Gideon and my girl Harrow and my girl Nona. Well, my friends, I will catch you in another video very soon. Stay kind and keep on reading.